In 1914, life changed in the beachside village of Carpinteria, California. The town's first electrical grid provided light and power, and the Russell Cup track meet began. This year, Carpinteria High School will host the Russell Cup for the 100th time. By tradition, Russell Cup princesses will present trophies to the winners, though not as personally as they did in the 1950s. Baseball, softball teams, and volunteers will help run the meet. And the Boosters Club will barbecue tri-tip for sandwiches. Russell Cup is truly a generational tradition. Here's one example.
My name is Daniel Burquez. I graduated in 2017. Both sets of parents that I have been involved in the Russell Cup about 60 years. Both sides, about 15 family members. And so we have a long family tradition for this event. At Carpi, we're grateful to have an all-weather track to compete on rainy days like this, along with, our laser technology. But, it wasn't always like that.
Film from the 1939 Russell Cup shows spectators jamming the field. Running, throwing, and jumping events were all on dirt surfaces. Vaulters used bamboo poles and fell into piles of sawdust. In 1913, Carpinteria School Principal Francis Fig Hoblin organized local boys into a track team and invited 4 neighboring schools to an end-of-year competition. The following year, Carpinterian Howland Shaw Russell donated a silver cup for the winning team, the Russell Cup. In 1915, Santa Paula High athletes Millard Webster and Lincoln Hall won their events at the Russell Cup and won again at the inaugural California State Championship. 1920 saw young Nick Carter from Lompoc win this first-place medal in the 1-mile run. 8 years later, Nick became the first Santa Barbara County resident to make the Olympic team. And 76 years after his victory, Coach Carter presented the Mild Trophy, now bearing his name, to Isaiah Festa of Morro Bay. 8 years later, Isaiah Festa himself missed the U.S. Olympic team by a mere 1.2 seconds. In 1921, Bud Hauser from Oxnard launched his career as the greatest male athlete in Russell Cup history. In addition to 2 Cup victories, Hauser was a 6-time state champion, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, and world record holder in the discus. A half-century later, another great Oxnard shot putter, Dave Lout of Santa Clara High, won the Russell Cup 3 times and went on to earn a silver medal at the 1984 Olympic Games. At the 1929 Russell Cup, Kate School's Graham Hollister flew across the finish line to win the 220-yard dash in a near world record time. Years later, engineers rebuilding the old Russell Cup track found that the 220 run sloped downhill, so Hollister's remarkable time was disallowed. Despite the economic depression of the 1930s, the Russell Cup prospered under the guidance of 2 administrators. Carpinteria coach Dr. Fred Greeno ran in the 1918 Russell Cup. And in the 1930s, he tutored Carpinteria's first state meet contenders. Starting in 1932, Dale Schuyler won Russell Cup distance races each of his 4 years at Carpinteria High. In 1935, Dale finished a close second at the state meet mile run. Also in 1935, teammate Ralph Wood won the state meet half-mile run. Meanwhile, elementary school principal Frank Wyckoff brought star power to Carpinteria. Mr. Wyckoff had won gold relay medals in 3 Olympic Games. the last in Berlin, running anchor after legendary Jesse Owens' leadoff leg. Frank was Russell Cup starter, ran in exhibition races, and donated a perpetual trophy for the 100-yard dash winner. Here Mr. Wyckoff is seen posing between Bud Hauser and movie star Douglas Fairbanks. At the 1941 Russell Cup, Thelno Knowles of Santa Monica shattered the half-mile record by an astonishing 5 seconds. Soon after, both Thelno's running career and the Russell Cup were put on hold as wartime restrictions forced the cancellation of 5 Russell Cups. In the 1950s, with a rebuilt track and a brand new freeway nearby, the Russell Cup was underway once again. Hart High School high jumper Bob Avon set a Russell Cup record and won the state meet. Another state meet winner, Ray Nickelberry, eclipsed Avon's mark by half an inch, a record that stood for 33 years. And Ventura's Mike Larrabee won 2 Russell Cup sprints and followed with 2 gold medals at the 1964 Olympics. The 1960s opened with a girls' relay race, the first ever Russell Cup women's event. Carpinteria's Sari Small was already a national class runner. But with no official interscholastic competition for women, the 1960 relay was Sari's only opportunity to represent her school. Russell Cup continued to add women's events until a full competitive slate began in 1973, 2 years before the CIF began official women's competition. 40 years after Sari Small's relay debut, the Carpinteria women's 4x400 relay team set a Russell Cup record that has now lasted 19 years. By tradition, Russell Cup queens continue to present awards, but they're no longer limited to the role of admiring guys. Nowadays, they often play dual roles of both queens and competitors.
Last year, I was both a competitor in the Russell Cup and a princess. And in the competition, I had to run 1 mile. It was fun. I felt really honored to be a princess and do the mile.
In the 1980s and 90s, featured local track stars went on to prestigious careers. In 1981, Carpinteria High School's 9th grader Sarah Alaback set a school record for 2 miles that stood for 36 years. Transferring to Kate School, Sarah became the first Kate female CIF track champion and first to run in the state championship meet. Sarah is now a noted architectural historian. The next year, Carpinterian Tom Gruey capped 3 Russell Cup wins and 6 CIF championships with a victory in the California State Meet Mile Run. Tom currently is Deputy Director in the Department of the Navy. Kate's Tracy Lawyer holds the record with 8 Russell Cup varsity championships. She also captured 10 CIF championships, won state meet title, and was NCAA heptathlon champ. Tracy is now Dr. Lawyer, an orthopedic surgeon. Carpinteria High's Coley Candell was 1990 CIF Athlete of the Year. In his 4 Russell Cup years, Coley won every race he ran, added 6 CIF championships, and was 1990 State Meet Mile Champion. He's now among the nation's most successful high school coaches in both football and track and field. The Russell Cup welcomed the 21st century with a new all-weather track facility, just in time for the debut of the greatest female Russell Cup athlete, Allison Felix. Allison was Russell Cup Most Outstanding Female in 2000, while only a 9th grader. In years since, she collected 5 state meet victories, 9 Olympic, and 16 world medals. April 13th, 2019, the 100th Russell Cup will salute the past with historical races run over yards instead of today's standard metric distances. so that 21st century runners can directly compare their times with runners 100 years ago. And 2 new traditions will be added. The Jack Smith Trophy will be awarded to the team that best demonstrates sportsmanship, honesty, and integrity in the heat of competition. Also on April 5th, Carpinteria students will compete in the Junior Russell Cup meet.